hello, and happy Sunday. So yesterday, on Saturday, Mary and I went to the thrift store and we bought some things, and I wanted to share with you my part of our haul. And another video, Mary will show you hers. So Mary found me this pin from the Titanic museum attraction, and she actually got this for free by buying another pin, and it says RMS Titanic, when she steamed out of the harbor at Southampton, England, on her maiden voyage at noon on April 10th, 1912, RMS Titanic was the largest movable object ever built. At 2:20 a.m. on April 15th, 1912, just over 108 hours after leaving the dock, the stern of the Titanic plunged into the icy waters of the North Atlantic Ocean. Harlan and Wolff, who built the RMS Titanic, was owned by J.P. Morgan, and it goes on under this sticker. I don't know if I can get this off. An American company was managed by a British White Star Line, basically is the gist of it. They're trying to explain why they have the American and British flag on this pin, but that's the explanation. Okay. I found this book, Make Yours a Happy Marriage, and the book itself jumped out at me because it's old, but when I opened it up, I saw this really nice picture of a couple, and there's a post-it note. It says, "They will grow old and wrinkly in love with God and each other, Steve and Kathy." And I guess this was given to them at some point. Here's a receipt from Walmart, and I don't know if it's the same people, and there's a few items purchased. The receipt was 11/16/2001, and you can see the 9/11 Together We Stand donate here today. So this receipt was shortly after 9/11. The book was for 20 cents. I paid a quarter for it. This is a 1946 book. These pages are affectionately dedicated to my wife, and it has ways to make your marriage work, union on the physical level. I think this is religious themed. So they're talking about a religious marriage, obviously. And but I just thought it was an interesting thing to find. And I don't know about the couple in the picture. I certainly hope they're still together. Maybe this was an oversight. But this is an old Kodak print, so they look like a really, really nice looking couple here. Then, that's probably from 25 years ago, found a copy of Killers of the Flower Moon. This is soon to be a major motion picture, the book of the Osage murders and the birth of the FBI. And I do want to read this. There's some bookmarks in here. Gray Matter Books, New Haven, Connecticut. And the book has lots of pictures of the people depicted in the movie. Like that's Ernest and Molly Burkhart. In the movie, if you watch it, it was basically about how the Osage Indians in Oklahoma struck oil and became rich, and then certain non-native people would marry them and try to get their wealth. and then eventually degenerated into murdering them. Well, this is the main character, Molly Burkhart, and she's actually really attractive in this picture right here. I think that's the character Leonardo DiCaprio played. And as you can see, she was just as pretty as like Lily Gladstone, who played her. I thought that was a good casting. And the reason I'm pointing this out is I've heard a lot of people say that she was not as pretty as Lily Gladstone, or whatever. But I think she was. I think she was a nice looking woman, and so I think that's kind of mean that people have been harsh on her. Bless her heart. I mean, she had a terrible life. So, and I think Leonardo DiCaprio they put prosthetics or makeup on him to look more like this guy. So there's a lot of good pictures in here, so I'm really looking forward to reading this. And the character Robert De Niro played is right here. So this is The Lady is a Lush. Where does the cocktail hour lead wives like Amy who can't stop with one drink? Fresh from alcoholics' frenzies in the arms of other men, she would come to her husband's bed. He knew it, yet found her irresistible. So this was 35 cents. It says, why do pretty housewives like Amy Collins so often fall into that common trap? The afternoon hour at some bar. Do they drink because of loneliness, boredom with a society that offers too little to women? Or is it the other way around? Is it the alcohol itself that generates the urge for male companionship, excitement, thrills, a heavenly body in a deadly orbit of men and martinis? The golden Amy wasn't old enough to vote, but she was old enough, smart enough to know life need not be dull while Chip, her lusty husband, was away. All she had to do was drown her inhibitions in a bottle, then throw herself into the arms of the nearest man. If Chip learned of it, she could still hold him. He loved her, didn't he? Besides, she was by far the prettiest, sexiest thing in sight. The powerful news story from the master pen of Ori Hitt poignantly explores the problem of alcoholic degeneracy. So this looks like a good read. This is copyright 1960. And there's all kinds of exploitative books that you can also find it from Beacon Books, like Hitchhike Hussy, Adulteress, Steffi, Slave Ship, Strumpet Seed, Tabasco, Scandalous Lady, The Hussy, The Widow, Chris, Half Caste, The Strange Ones, Add Flesh to the Fire, Nude in the Mirror, Alcoholic Woman, Odd Girl, Tap Softly on My Bedroom Door, Private Club, Turncoat, Night of Shame, Lita, The Needle, Carnival Girl. It says the description, for the price of a ticket, you could enjoy Rhoda's charms. The Peeper, Temple of Lust, Streetwalker, Hellcat, The Virgin, The Young Hoods, The Divorcees. There's just pages of these to read. I just find this freaking hysterical too, and I can't wait to read this. This probably is going to be entertaining as hell. Okay. On an opposite side, I found this incredibly nice Holy Bible, Revised Standard Version, Catholic Edition. This is incredibly nice gift Bible that is in its own protective case with a medal attached to it. And the medal appears to have Jesus on it. When you open the Bible, you'll see that it is built into this case. I don't think you could remove it without damaging it. It has black durable end papers made out of like rubber. And it's never been autographed or signed or anything or inscribed. And I'll get into that in a second. So this is a full-on gift Bible, a very nice one, very expensive one. And then we get to the pages itself. I love the feel of Bible paper. There is a bookmark. Kind of a painted desert scene here. And lots and lots of pages. Over 1,200 pages. Just in mint condition. So I purchased this. Of course, I own my own Bible. I'm going to donate this to St. Michael's, and they will provide this Bible, which is really nice, to someone who can't afford one. So that's the reason I got this, is so someone who wants one, who can't afford one like this, will get one now. So they will take donated Bibles and distribute them to parishioners. So I thought this would be a nice thing to donate. I found Common Sense by Thomas Paine. I've actually never read this, and I've always wanted to. Common Sense became the moral and intellectual touchstone for the American colonists struggling for independence from England. It sold over 120,000 copies within 3 months of its publication in 1776. The United States of America owes its existence in part to the incendiary brilliance of this work. In presenting his case to the American colonists that a break with England was not only inevitable and justified, Thomas Paine convincingly argued that the time for debate was over and that it was now time for the American colonists to raise arms. He ventured the judgment that was in a war with England, America would emerge the victor. The striking phrases and clarity of vision of Common Sense continue to resonate with readers today. So I've always wanted to read this. And this is looks like it's never even been opened. And it looks, that typeset looks like the old style of printing. So I'm actually looking forward to diving into this. And I have a history degree, and somehow I made it through with only reading passages from this book, but not reading the whole thing. So I think it's high time that I read the whole book. Okay. They found this giant Batman comic. August. This is a big one. 64 pager. This is very old, 1971. And it's fairly good shape. I mean, this is not one that you're gonna get $1 million for, but you know, it's still pretty nice one. I remember comics like this when I was a kid, and this is how all comics looked. And see, it's like upside down. Maybe Batman's hanging upside down. So this is really cool find. A classic comic. The Sea Monkeys. Now, we got these when I was a kid, and I remember we got these, and we also got Magic Sand at one point when we were in the late 70s. And I remember being a little disappointed that they didn't look like the anthropomorphic characters in the picture. Here is The House of Forbidden Love, The Secret of the Missing Bride. A full-length, spine-tingling suspense novel for 25 cents. DC Comics is proud to bring you its brand new breakthrough in reading entertainment, The Shape of Comics to Come. It's a graphic novel, I suppose. And then Diamonds. Military Mint. Your credit is good with National Diamond. Any item on this page, only $20 monthly. I don't feel like you shouldn't buy your diamond ring for your wife from a comic book. I don't know. It's probably better than what you get nowadays, though. Watch Them Grow. This is Lucky Clover Club. Ever see a lion with green hair? I think it's like Chia Pet. Early Chia Pets here. The old Action Comics Superman cover t-shirts. A coin grab bag. I would have fallen for that one. So I had a comment, I think it was my last video, when someone, I didn't respond, but someone wrote that, basically said that my voice is not soothing. There's an ad for Zeppelin, and that my channel is never going to grow or something to that effect because my voice is not soothing. I actually was annoyed by it and I didn't answer it. I just hid it. But my response, though, if I could answer this person, is that I'm not doing this channel to make lots of money or become internet famous. I'm making these videos with as little ads, no mid-run ads, so you can relax, as a hobby that I enjoy. And I actually would rather have the 6.9 thousand of you who I like, who I've gotten to know, many of you, than a million people that I wouldn't get to know, and even more dumb comments like that. So I like it the way I do it, and I'm not going to change anything. You either like my channel or you don't. So I'm not changing anything about the way I do it. So believe me, I never thought I would get as many subscribers as I have. But all of you, I love you guys, and I wouldn't change anything about this. So that's where I stand on that. But I didn't feel like writing it out because that's a waste of time. So we found some Disney comics. I remember these when I was a kid. These are actually from 1969, and they were my brother's. So to find these again in a thrift store is amazing. These were put up by Gold Key, and they're all in amazing condition. As a little kid, I loved having these. When I did learn to read, I read them to the point where they were barely hanging together. And that old scam of the sell greeting cards and get these prizes for a month club. And it's a Tootsie Roll ad. This is Moby Duck instead of Moby Dick. There's an ad for Cheerios. These are in really good shape. Dinosaur Facts and King Kong comic. A little bit of damage to the back here. This is Mickey Mouse and Goofy. There's an ad for Sugar Crisp, Rice Crinkles, Crispy Critters, and Alphabets. I not only remember these cereals, but I remember when the boxes looked just like that. I love these old ads. Another one of the scam pages. Goes on to the next page. Another Mickey and Goofy. A little bit of a terror in it. Stickers, I guess. Oh gosh. Sorry about that. Didn't know that was going to happen. And Flintstones cups for Flintstones vitamins. I would have loved that. Super Goof. There's more ads of buying your jewelry from a comic book, which I would not recommend. There's the sea monkeys again. So this is what I thought they would look like. They don't look like that. Little Disney action figures. Disney Kin play figures are here. Holy cow. This is 1969, so you'll see like hippie stuff. See all that? That's like popular for 1969. Incense. Why do people burn incense if they're smoking weed? That's 99% of the reason. Kind of inappropriate to put in a Disney comic. The Spiro Agnew watch, Dickie Nixon watch, Moshe Dayan watch, W.C. Fields, Laurel and Hardy, Republican watch, and Democrat watch. At least they're being fair. At least they're not just one-sided. And here's some more patches to give you a feel of what was popular in 1969. You have peace flag, gas mask, an ecology one, a Playboy bunny, psychedelic love, stop sign, another peace symbol, the Ankh or life symbol, an anti-pollution one, black is beautiful, cobra, help I need lovin', another peace sign, a life slogan, peace sergeant, Woodstock dove, soul power, Olympic drinker, road runner, Wile E. Coyote, oddly enough a Confederate flag, a U.S. flag, all-American patch, caution Budweiser powered, SDP, I Spy, Flash Gordon. So it kind of breaks up like hippie, conservative, then hippie again, or comic geek. Felix, the happy face, Sergeant Pep Beatles, very interesting stuff. And the last one, Josie and the Pussycats, which was from the Archies. I'm actually surprised these don't smell like cigarette smoke, but they don't. Curtis LeMay coin. So they're selling coins and medals. Full color posters. You can get a poster of Chicago, the band, all together now. Most of this is like rock band posters. There's a Bob Dylan one there. Donovan. Lots of Beatles ones. Gary Puckett and the Union Gap. John Lennon. Taj Mahal, the Raiders, Johnny Cash. And the Scam one and a Charlie Brown book set. It's got The Great Pumpkin, He's Your Dog, Charlie Brown, A Charlie Brown Christmas, Charlie Brown All-Stars, It Was a Short Summer, Charlie Brown, and You're in Love, Charlie Brown. Okay. Found this book. This is The Blue and the Gray Civil War book. The dust cover is kind of beat up, but the inside of it looks pretty good. And this is mostly pictures. This was put out in like around 91, around the time the Civil War documentary came out. But the logo very closely resembles, although it's not, the logo for the 1982 miniseries. It's got a signature of Shelby Foote here, who wrote the foreword. So obviously this was put out along the lines of the Civil War documentary. Harper's Ferry. A lot of good photos in here. This photograph says it was taken in 1862 of field hands planting sweet potatoes, but I would question that. All of these gentlemen are wearing cape hats, and two of them, if not three of them, are wearing Union uniform parts. I would venture to guess rather these were this is a post-war picture of veterans who were working on a farm in the South after going back. I don't think this was a picture of enslaved people. I think this is a picture of veterans. I don't trust a lot of these. Sometimes they threw these books together fast without getting proper citations on the pictures. But there's still a lot of good pictures, and that doesn't make me discount the book. Edmund Ruffin, kind of a crazy radical. There's a good picture of Lincoln. That's Lincoln delivering his inaugural address. This is Montgomery, Alabama. Jefferson Davis giving his inaugural address in the capital of the Confederacy when it was in Montgomery. Look at that dramatic picture of the train going through town. Some Zouaves. A lot of good pictures in this. Stonewall Jackson. In the movie Gods and Generals, there's a huge mistake they make in it that always bugs me. It shows the two Confederate soldiers walking, and they're talking about General Jackson, and they are like They call him Old Hickory, Old Blue Light, and Tom Fool, and but actually they never called Stonewall Jackson Old Hickory. They called Andrew Jackson Old Hickory, a completely different person from a completely different time. He was a president who fought in the War of 1812. That was a big blunder for a movie that was supposed to be carefully researched. Old Hickory was never applied to Stonewall Jackson. They did call him Tom Fool and Blue Light, and but they didn't call him. They never called him Hickory. I can't believe that slipped through. I liked Gettysburg, but I was frustrated watching Gods and Generals by the number of mistakes that were made. There were quite a few, and it diminished my enjoyment of the movie. And a lot of them were just dumb mistakes like that too, just like they didn't think about it. Jeb Stewart. That's a really good picture right there. The few things that Gods in General did get right is at the Battle of Bull Run, it did show them all wearing Northern uniforms, because they didn't have their Confederate uniforms yet. They got that right. Robert E. Lee looked way too old in the beginning. I love Robert Duvall, but they should have cast a man who was probably in his late 40s or early 50s to play Robert E. Lee. He had dark hair at that point. It became gray during the course of the war. He was not. Robert Duvall was just way too old for that part. I thought he did a pretty good job playing it. I just wasn't the right age. And also, I thought that Jeff Daniels did a great job as Colonel Chamberlain in Gettysburg, but in Gods and Generals, he seemed older and more run down than this sort of, and I know the movie was made later, but when we meet him in Gettysburg, which is supposed to be later, he seems almost fresh and like barely battle experience, but by the end of Gods and Generals, you'd think he is a hardened veteran. So all those wagon trains. And I also didn't care for how they portrayed Buster Kilrain, the fictional sergeant in the 20th Maine. In Gettysburg, he seemed like a good NCO, a tough guy, a no-nonsense guy. But in Gods and Generals, he seemed like a brown-noser. Like he was just buddying up to Colonel Chamberlain from the get-go and trying to dispense wisdom. That's in Gettysburg, you got the idea that they, developed a sort of that relationship over time, not from instantly, like from the first time they meet. So I didn't like that either. There's just a lot of things about it I thought made it an inferior movie. I did get the extra extended version, and it's an improvement. It's still not perfect. That's from the 54th. That's William Carney, the color bearer, who brought back the flag from the Battle of Battery Wagner. And these boater hats. Still a good book here, and I don't regret. I always thought that was a really haunting picture of digging up the dead of Cold Harbor so they could be properly buried. I mean, that's finding them like that. Joseph Johnston. sermon. Some of these pictures are just amazing. I do like the book for the pictures. I did already catch one error in it, but it's still pretty good. I like this quote right here. Plainly, the sheep and the wolf are not agreed upon a definition of the word liberty. That challenges the person to think about nuance. Nuance is something that we tend to drift away from as we get more and more civilized. Sadly, I don't see an end to all of this. It just seems to be a cycle in history. It was the body of Lincoln. He was so over-embalmed that when they opened his coffin again in 1901, he had barely changed. There is a photograph circulating on the internet of the face in the coffin when they disinterred it and reopened it. And they had done that a lot because the coffin had been stolen. And they were trying to make sure everything was still in there. I found this book. It's called Killing Jesus, The Unknown Conspiracy Behind the World's Most Famous Execution. This intrigued me. I don't know. It says, rooted in scholarship but told simply and with vivid detail, this gritty account of the crucifixion of Jesus tells the unknown, fascinating saga of the death of the world's most famous man. Now, I'm interested to know where they would have gotten their research. But inside the book, there's a plane ticket from many years ago from Atlanta to Austin, and a letter I found from Stephen Phillip, and he's talking about his, this was his book, and he's talking about going on a physician mission. So it's interesting, another interesting find to come across. When you find these books in thrift stores, you can often find little artifacts like that. Could not turn down a Far Side book. I can sit here and read these all day. And It Came from the Far Side. I love Far Side cartoons. They're just so funny. And finally, got some DVDs. Thunder Road with Robert Mitchum. A great, one of the, kind of a John Wick, Fast and Furious predecessor. This is a great movie. I highly recommend it. If you haven't seen it, this is the movie that put Robert Mitchum on the map. And, I mean, I can't tell you enough how you just need to watch this if you want to see a movie that will surprise you for a 50s movie. This will surprise you. Here's one I've never seen. Elizabeth I, the Virgin Queen, starring Anne-Marie Duff and Tom Hardy. So, Queen has it all. Politics, pageantry, and passion. It's a masterpiece theater production. WGBH Boston. And British drama at its best. As the Virgin Queen begins, a young Elizabeth is imprisoned in the Tower of London by Queen Mary, which was her sister, charged with conspiracy and treason. Both women are daughters of the ruthless and oft-married Henry VIII, who plunged England into turmoil by breaking with the Roman Catholic Church. Mary wants to reunite with Rome, while Elizabeth is determined to stand for her Protestant faith, a potentially fatal choice. But Elizabeth's life takes an unexpected turn when Mary dies, leaving no heir to the throne. As the new queen, Elizabeth discovers the harsh realities of ruling a religiously divided nation and must learn to outwit her enemies and charm those who conspire to their own ends. Soon under pressure to secure a politically advantageous marriage, the coquettish Elizabeth rejects a string of eligible royal bachelors from abroad, openly preferring the burning affections of her childhood playmate, the athletic, handsome, and married Robert Dudley. But is she toying with him as she is with her own suitors? So, and I'm guessing that Tom Hardy plays Robert Dudley. That's a good pick. So Robert Dudley was the brother of Guilford Dudley, who was the husband of the queen before Mary, Queen Jane, and the son of the Duke of Northumberland, John Dudley, who was the de facto leader of England shortly after Henry VIII died. It was Thomas Seymour, and then through some machinations, he was beheaded, and then John Dudley took over and tried to prop up Queen Jane and his son Guilford, but that didn't work out. 9 days later, he was arrested. They were all beheaded, and then Mary had a short reign as queen, and then Elizabeth was almost certainly in love with Robert Dudley, one of the surviving sons of John Dudley. So this is High Plains Drifter with Clint Eastwood, never been opened. Believe it or not, I've never watched this movie all the way through. I've wanted to for a long time. I know it's a mystical, spiritual movie. It says Clint Eastwood's second film as a director finds the celebrated action star returning to his familiar Old West stomping grounds with his internationally acclaimed role of the man with no name. This time, the stranger, Clint Eastwood, mysteriously appears out of the heat waves of the desert and rides into the lawless, sin-ridden town of Lego. After making a name for himself with a string of blazing gun battles, the stranger is hired by the townspeople to provide protection from 3 ruthless gunmen just out of jail. The stranger quickly proceeds to paint the entire town bright red, rename it Hell, and supply divine retribution to the fiery, pulse-pounding climax of this acclaimed Western shoot-'em-up, with lots of special features. I'm looking forward to watching this. Now, this one, at a glance, you might think, oh, this looks boring. It looks like an old Western, but this is not boring. This is The Mounted Stranger, 2 versions. This is Hoot Gibson, 1930, pre-code, fantastically entertaining movie that's gripping from the very beginning. In 1930, before the code, the violence was more realistic, the flirting was more realistic, the dialogue, the whole thing together, and it even seemed to be filmed on real Western locations, as the Old West was just a few years before this, and Hoot Gibson was a real cowboy. A young Pete Ainsley sees Gary kill his father. Years later, Pete, now grown up and played by Hoot Gibson, shoots Gary, but Gary recovers, and he and his gang trail Pete to Spider's Border Saloon in Mexico. We watched the whole thing last night, and it is an absolutely fantastic movie. They capture him, but he escapes the saloon and escapes again when being chased, bringing about a showdown between Gary and his antagonistic henchman, White-Eye. So it sounds a little cheesy when you read it here, but it's actually very well done. When this movie was released to theaters, not all the movie houses were equipped with sound equipment, so 2 versions were made. One is a silent, the other is a sound version. This DVD features both. So we watched the talking, and then the silent version actually is somewhat different, with different color tinting and different dialogue. So very interesting. Here's 100 classic cartoons. This is 12 hours and 23 minutes of some great Charles Fleischer cartoons. Many have been banned. So just all in pretty good shape. We watched some of them last night, and it was actually really cool to watch these old cartoons from the 30s, most of them, on 2 discs. This is A Man Called Peter from 1955, the true story of how one man's faith uplifted a nation. Considered one of the finest films to deal with religion, A Man Called Peter is the compelling story of Scottish minister Peter Marshall, who as a young man traveled to Washington, D.C. and became the pastor of the Church of the Presidents. By the time of his death, he was a chaplain to the Senate and a greatly respected man. Although he was a Presbyterian, the wisdom and sincerity of his sermons appealed to the people of all faiths, featuring outstanding performances by Richard Todd and Jean Peters. A Man Called Peter is also a touching love story and received an Oscar nomination. So I also never heard of this, and it's 20th Century Fox. So I'm curious to see an old 1955 movie. Here's Algiers with Hedy Lamarr and Charles Boyer. Charles Boyer stars as Pepe Lamoco, a master criminal wanted in Paris for stealing jewels. He takes refuge in the Casbah, a notorious city in French Algiers that harbors criminals. The detective on the case, Inspector Slimane, knows Pepe's whereabouts but prefers to bide his time and let Pepe come to him. While in the Casbah, Pepe grows restless and tired of his devoted lover, Inez. He meets a beautiful tourist, Hedy Lamarr, and falls madly in love with her. Soon Pepe becomes careless, and it's only a matter of time before the inspector catches up with him. So another classic movie. And finally, I opened up South Pacific, but it is actually, since I already own South Pacific, it's The Sound of Music, which I don't own. So, but I now have some nice new liner notes for my copy of South Pacific that I got from Korea that didn't come with any. So, I'm happy doubly. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please consider subscribing to my channel if you like my hauls, my other videos. Thanks for watching. Please give me a thumbs up, a comment, and click the bell icon. And I'll see you soon. Bye.